Have you ever floated all the way down a short runway in Microsoft Flight Simulator, smashed the nose gear down, or had the stall horn suddenly scream at you during a steep turn? The culprit isn't your airspeed, it's your angle of attack. Welcome back to Cycle 2 of Microsoft Flight Simulator A to Z. Today we are tackling the letter A and we're breaking down the single most critical aerodynamic principle that indicates every second you spend in the sky. If you think angle of attack is just a fancy word for pitch, this video is going to completely change how you fly your approaches. Let's bust the biggest myth right out of the gate. Pitch is simply where your nose points relative to the horizon. Angle of attack, or AOA, is the angle at which your wing is slicing through the actual airflow. If you want a super simple way to picture this, imagine you are a passenger in a car driving down the highway and you stick your hand out the window flat like a wing. If your hand is perfectly flat, the wind flows smoothly over and under it. That's a low angle of attack. Tilt the front of your hand up and the oncoming wind hits your palm, forcing your arm upward. You just increased your angle of attack and generated lift. But tilt it completely vertical and your arm gets slammed violently backward as lift completely disappears. That is a high AOA stall. Now let's translate that exact car window trick to your airplane's wing. Look at this diagram. Your hand is the wing and drawing a line straight through it from front to back gives us the chord line. The highway wind blasting against your hand is the relative wind, which in aviation is always exactly opposite to your aircraft's flight path through space. The angular difference between the chord line and the relative wind is your true angle of attack. In the simulator, if your aircraft has a flight path vector or HUD, the space between the aircraft symbol where your nose points and the bird symbol where you're actually going is visually showing you this exact aerodynamic angle. Because every aircraft displays this data differently, let's do a quick cockpit tour so you know what to look for. In modern GA planes like the Cessna 172 with the G1000, angle of attack is shown as a simple color-coded arch right on your PFD. Green is safe, amber means you're pushing it, and red is an imminent stall. In a Boeing 737, it looks like a small digital dial right above your attitude tape, giving you a precise percentage readout of your wing's limit. Airbus takes a different approach. The fly-by-wire system manages it entirely behind the scenes, displaying you safety limits directly on the airspeed tape as amber and red overprotected lines. And if you're flying military iron like the Super Hornet, you get a dedicated 3-light indexer box right next to your HUD glass. You are flying for the amber donut in the middle, which tells you are at the perfect aerodynamic attitude for a carrier landing. Now if you watch Navy fighter pilots, they fly on speed angle of attacks as their primary target during a carrier landing. But in civilian aviation and standard airliners, we primarily fly computed airspeeds like VREF or VAP. For us simmers, the angle of attack indicator is an invaluable safety cross-check. Airspeed can lie to you based on your aircraft weight and bank angle, but angle of attack tells you the absolute truth about how close your wing is to its limit. Speaking of airliners, here's a quick pro tip for the PMDG 737 flyers out there. In some cases, the angle of attack indicator on the PFD is turned off. To enable it, you can simply go to the FMC, then you can go to the PMDG setup, where you will find the aircraft option, and inside the aircraft option you need to go to the displays. In display you will find a lot of options, as you can see, which you can even browse to, right? You can browse to all the options which are there, and there you can also switch on the angle of attack dial. That's the one which you're looking for. Besides that, of course, there are more options, but for this video specifically, the angle of attack, which is shown over here, make sure that it's switched to on, and then you can benefit from it. So here we are above the Netherlands flying in a Vision jet, and this aircraft has an angle of attack indicator, but as you can see, it's not visible. It should be somewhere around here, but you don't see it. Now the nice thing is that you can enable it by pressing the PFD settings, then you go to the AOA, and if you see that it's set to auto, it will likely not work, but if you switch it to on, you will be able to see it. Because if we now look back, hopefully if that works, you can now see the angle of attack, and you can see we're still climbing, right? So if I would say kind of push the aircraft, you will see if I push it a little bit forward, because I want to, in this case, maybe align, then you can see that the angle of attack changes. But as you also can see, it tries to continuously, let's say, pull back the aircraft because the other pilot switched on. So let me remove the other pilot, and then you will see different things which will happen. Of course, if I now they kind of pull the stick, look at what happens with the angle of attack. You can see it changes. And if I will push it even harder, it will go into the red zone eventually, which of course is something which you don't want. But this is just to give you an indication on how you can use this nice instrument to make sure that you're flying correctly. So if your nose is high and your speed is low, you will see that the wing is tilting aggressively into the oncoming wind to generate enough lift to keep us of course leveled. But that will have an impact on this small indicator here, the angle of attack. Now, not in every aircraft the angle of attack looks the same, because if we're flying in an FA-18 Hornet, you will see it over here, right? This is the angle of attack in this case. Pretty interesting. It's not a nice icon just like in the previous demo, but the reason I'm using this one is because if you want to push this aircraft or an aircraft in the danger zone, it's kind of hard with a fly-by-wire aircraft, because those aircrafts do have some protection which would automatically block, I would say, your inputs and make sure that you're not, I would say, coming into the danger zone. However, with this aircraft, of course, it's possible. So what we need to do is we're gonna, say, push the aircraft forward, because we want to descend. I also need to, say, keep an eye on the altitude, of course. So here we go. And then we're gonna try to push back and, say, pull it into a stall. Now look at what happens with the, let's say, if I'm not, let's say, blacking out, with the angle of attack. Of course, that's always a challenge, because then I need to make sure that I continue to climb like this. It's almost impossible to read, but you can see the angle of attack went up to 9.9 in this case. Of course, with a fly-by-wire aircraft, that results in some other things, because they will simply prevent you, right? All those systems will prevent you from going into this area. But with the FA-18 Hornet, you can, I would say, kind of simulate it. You can also see that the angle of attack now completely goes crazy, right? You saw the aircraft comes into, let's say, a really weird situation. So let me try it again, right? Let me just show you once more what happens. And here we go. So first gonna descend a bit, really hard, and then we're gonna pull back the stick. And then I need to watch out that I'm not gonna faint. Let's look at what happens now. Right, and there you see the aircraft will start with, say, shaking, and the angle of attack goes completely crazy. And this is something which you need to be aware of, because now in this case we need to, of course, recover the aircraft. So I'm gonna simply drop down, and then let's say, hopefully I can recover the aircraft. And that's hopefully, because you can see that the angle of attack is really, really great. So let's first make sure that we're having enough speed. Here we go. And then we can recover the aircraft, in this case the FA-18 Hornet. Luckily, with airliners which have the fly-by-wire systems, this is extremely hard to reproduce. But this is just to give you an indication of what happens when the angle of attack goes into that red zone. And in this case, the red zone is being shown with digits. Mastering your angle of attack is the ultimate secret to stopping runway float, nailing your short field landings, and keeping your aircraft safe in steep patterns. That wraps up A for Cycle 2. If this video helped you, then don't forget to hit the like button, and of course don't forget to subscribe for next week's video. Drop a comment below. Have you tried using the car window trick mentally during your approaches? And let me know what aviation concept or system you want to see when we hit the letter B. Until next time, and thanks for watching.